Horror Hive is a spine tingling podcast hosted by three fearless Black women who share a deep passion for everything horror, from
Everything.
imaginative fiction to creepy urban legends to terrifying true crime stories. These hosts bring unique perspectives and experiences to every episode. This creates a truly immersive listening experience. We'll explore topics that will include all forms of media with a focus on inclusivity and representation in the horror genre. Horror Hive is a celebration of Black excellence in the podcast world. Join us as we explore the darkest genre, one episode at a time. All
Okay.
right. Now we're going to move into introductions. We are going to introduce ourselves to you guys so you know a little bit about us, a little bit about why we enjoy horror so much. So, this podcast is the brainchild of a creative woman I came in contact with through a Facebook group, Black Horror Nerds Unite, and subsequently through another group, but we'll talk about that on future episodes. When she said she wanted to do a podcast, I leaped at the chance to be involved. She has an enormous vision for our Facebook group and this podcast.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, our founder and co-host, Zelly.
Hi.
Go,
Um,
Zelly. Go, Zelly.
y'all so silly. But hi everybody. My introduction will just be basically why I love horror so much. My first memories of horror when I was very young was I used to watch Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock with my mom at night, and I didn't quite understand like for it to be horror. I just knew it was different. It was like not of this world, literally, and I loved it. As I got older, I found out about movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and The Exorcist. I was the only one of my friends that didn't go to sleep watching them because I was scared. I think that's when I knew I liked to be scared. Um, every time I went to Blockbuster, I would go straight to the horror section. And in New Orleans, we used to watch a local show at night called Marcus Presents. Well, he was like a mad scientist that had a partner that was something not quite human that Marcus created. Well, while he was always coming up with new experiments, he would cut and go to a horror movie that we all would watch together. It was amazing. I watched every episode. He introduced me to movies like Tales from the Dark Side. Um, Elm Street was pretty gruesome, funny, and scary. And The Exorcist was slow at first as a kid, but became very scary. So I really liked that. And then after that, horror just became my go-to for movies.
All right. Okay, now this next woman has contributed quite a bit to our Facebook groups and the formation of this podcast in the way of ideas that really make you think.
Uh-oh.
The name of the podcast and the name of our group here was her
Yes,
idea. When
yes,
I
I love it.
heard it, I said, yes, that's it. That's it right
Yes,
there.
I love it.
And I can't wait to listen to her stories, experiences, and thoughts within this genre. Ladies and gentlemen, our co-host Geneva. Yay!
Yay!
Oh, oh. Yeah, I have loved horror for such a long time. And I was just trying to look up the name of the show that I watched when I was younger. I don't know if you remember it. It had like blood dripping down the screen because I think I'm older than all of you. And I can't find it here, but it
It's
used to
a
have
TV show or a movie?
TV show. Yeah.
Oh.
And see, when I was younger, when TV first came out, no.
You-
I used to like sneak and watch this, right? And it had
right.
Boris Karloff and Vincent Price,
Oh
you
wow.
know, and they would, narrate how the original House of Wax scared me to death. Okay, because I
Right.
was about 8 years old, and that was like, oh no, I didn't know those things could possibly happen
Wow.
there.
Right.
And but I think the one that got me was Jaws. I went to see Jaws on the big screen, and as a kid, you don't know that's a mechanical shark. And
Right.
I was living in Canada by the ocean, and I never went in the ocean again. That was it. I was like,
All right. And so you guys are probably wondering who's the one doing all the talking. Well,
Mm-hmm.
my name is Amy, and like these women, I love horror. And I can't wait to share my insights on the genre with you,
Yeah.
our audience. Now, since this is our first episode, we thought we would start by sharing a little bit about our love for horror, which these ladies have done. And thanks to Geneva, we have some questions that will help you guys, our audience, understand our passion a little bit better. Now, ladies, you both discussed what the first horror movie you ever watched was and how old you were.
Right.
But my first horror movie was Dracula with Bela Lugosi, 1931 version. I was 7 years
Wow.
old. Um, I remember this movie so vividly because I was at home with my dad. It was a day off from school. He took the day off from work. And this was back when ABC and the local TV station near where we lived, it was one of those two, but they had like the midday movie. And this is what was on. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I was so into it because I'd also read the book at school. Our school library had a kids series of classic monster movie books.
Wow, that's cool.
And I went through all of them. I've tried to find them online. I can't find them anywhere. But to me, the movie wasn't really scary. I was more intrigued and wanted to see what are other horror movies were actually out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, as far as this movie went, I liked the antagonist, Dracula. I always liked the villain. I'm always, rooting for the killers. I'm always rooting for them. Every once in a while, I might find somebody else that I hope makes it out of the
Right.
movie. But in this movie, it was his hypnotic gaze and his supernatural abilities that I really enjoyed. But what I didn't like was the portrayal of his victim slash long lost love, Mina.
Mm.
Now, of course, it's the 1930s, so women were more timid and expected to act a certain way. Hence, Mina behaved more like a well trained pet to me, following the male lead, becoming so easily overwhelmed by Dracula. That just irritated me to no end. I'm like, girl, why? Why? But it was not this movie that turned me into a lover of horror. It wasn't this one. It was a movie called Funeral Home from 1980. And it was the special effects and the overall eerie aspect of it that
Right.
really drew me into horror.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen from Funeral Home, I graduated to Friday the 13th. From there, it was Nightmare on Elm Street and so on and so forth.